some.
Welcome back to Law News Network. I'm Heather Hansen, and we are happy to tell you that we have one of the Bobo family friends. His name is Rickey Alexander, and he helped with the search so many years ago and has been with the Bobo family, supporting them throughout the course of this trial. Welcome, Rickey.
Thank you. Thank you for having me here.
Oh, thank you so much for being here. I want to start with your T-shirt. I see that you have a picture of Holly there on your T-shirt. How are you feeling now that you've had a little bit of time to let the verdict seep in a little bit?
I don't think it has fully sunk in yet. Of course, right now I'm just feeling a whole range of emotions. I'm very happy for dear friends of mine who are finally able to have a few answers, a little bit of closure, but at the same time, I don't know what that word means, closure. I don't know how they will ever begin to get closure, but I think this is a step in the right direction, and it's just every emotion possible. That's what I've been going through the last few days.
Now, tell us about your relationship with the Bobos. Obviously, you knew them before this tragedy occurred. How do you know them? What's the relationship basis?
I did not know them before this happened. Holly went missing on April 13th, and at the time I thought it was just, you know, this can't be real. This doesn't happen here in our neck of the woods. So, you know, when I realized it was real and this was happening and this was a reality, I began searching. I lived 45 miles away at the time, and I drove up every single day during the searches, and that opened up a door. Somehow, Holly's cousin Natalie, I know we've heard a lot about her at trial, she contacted me and said that Karen Bobo wanted to speak with me, and I was really nervous about what that could be, and Karen said, you know, there's been so many social media pages going around that is maybe not telling the accurate information, you know, misleading information about the searches or stuff going on, or maybe even being based on rumors. So she wanted an official page that people could go to for the truth, for updates, and so that's what we did for 6 years until Holly was found, and that led us to, you know, meeting with the family on, you know, pretty regular basis, and helping Karen plan out searches, working with law enforcement to, you know, submit tips that we got in. We have covered, I couldn't even tell you how many searches or miles we have covered in all these years. We really hit the ground running.
Let me ask you a question. We just put up the picture, Randy, of you with Mr. and Mrs. Bobo. Tell us about the circumstances of that picture. You're the person there between the two of them, right?
Right. After the verdict was read, the judge told us, you know, there's to be absolutely no emotion, no outburst or such during that time, and we respected that. And afterwards, you know, the family just embracing everybody, thanking everyone. And that was a very emotional moment. And then Karen had the idea of she wanted to pray. She wanted all of her family, friends to gather in prayer. And, you know, the powerful thing about that is there's a separation of church and state, and that's not morally supposed to happen, but we did it. And to me, that picture is just incredibly powerful. You've got court officials, you've got U.S. Marshals, you've got TBI agents, everyone gathered around the family in the middle of that courtroom in prayer, and it just speaks volumes to me.
Randy, tell us a little bit about the trial. You know, the judge, it's such a small community there, and the judge seemed to know quite a few of the jurors. Did the judge know any of the family members? Was he familiar with any of the witnesses, as far as you know, more than just, you know, in passing?
As far as I know, he wasn't. There's, you know, specific, very strict guidelines for that. Of course, he's familiar with the family because for the last, you know, 3.5 years since this has been in the judicial system, he has become familiar with them. But as far as witnesses, I do not believe so. And jurors, I've seen a lot of stuff on Twitter this morning about that. I mean, you have to realize the judge is from Savannah, where the trial took place, and I mean, it's a very small town, so of course you're going to be familiar with one another. But I was very thankful that it was a very unbiased jury, and the judge was very, very respectful with them.
Rickey, have you or any of the family members heard from any of the jurors since the verdict came down?
I have. I was reached out to by one of them last night, and I just graciously thanked him for his service and left it at that.
Did he give you any insight into whether there was any particular witness or piece of evidence that impacted the outcome?
He didn't, and I didn't want to ask. I just basically told him that I was very glad that he was able to, return to a normal life. He said that it's been a rough few days, so I, graciously thanked him for his service, and told him that I wish nothing but the best for him, and I pray that he can return to a sense of normalcy. And he did say that this, has really opened his eyes and has really impacted his life.
Yeah, did he say in what way? That's interesting, and certainly something that we hear from a lot of jurors who serve on these very serious, very emotional trials. Did he say in what way it had impacted his life?
He didn't. He didn't divulge any.
You mentioned Natalie. Natalie, it was Holly's cousin, I think, on the father's side. Is that right?
Yeah, that's correct.
What is the relationship between Natalie and the rest of the Bobos now, after all of the testimony that came out during trial?
I'm not really at liberty to discuss that. I will say that it's a very strained relationship. It's going to take a lot of work there.
Yeah, that's a good explanation for it. These things do take a lot of work after time. What about Clint, Holly's brother? How is he doing, given all of the testimony and the evidence that came out regarding him?
Well, Clint was the first one I went up and grabbed as soon as the verdict was reached. He reached out to shake my hand, and I said, "We don't shake hands here in small town USA. We give bear hugs." And he smiled from ear to ear and just thanked me. He said, "Thank you so much for all you've done for my sister and my family." And in that moment, that makes it all completely worthwhile.
Do you feel as though that family is pretty they've sort of covered the teepees, and they're pretty joined together and not in the least bit arguing amongst themselves about some of the things that were alleged during the trial about Clint?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, from day one, if there has been a rumor out, every one of us has heard it, and Karen has investigated and I mean this, every single rumor that has came out, and at the end of the day, it's simply that, rumor. And for some reason, people want to, when they see something like this, they want to say, what's more complex than this, that there's more that meets the eye. And I agree, there is more that meets the eye, but as far as the rumors about Clint, I mean, it's just ridiculous. And I say this because I know them for going on 7 years. If you knew the household that Karen and Dana ran, and even if you just spent a little bit of time with Clint and seen his personality and how he is, every bit of those rumors would be just blown out of the water. I mean,
well, and it looks as though the jury certainly didn't give them any credence, and they returned with a verdict relatively quickly in such a big case. Tell me, how is the family feeling about the death penalty being taken off of the table? I know Nellie, one of our viewers, had asked that question. I know that it's something that they had initially sort of wanted, but how do they feel about that part of the case and that decision?
Well, the Bobos come from a very, very strong Christian family, and at the end of the day, I do not see them wanting to. I'll say this: in the beginning, whenever death penalty was a possibility, it took Karen and Dana quite a while to come to that decision, to agree to that. So I think their Christian faith had a lot to do with the agreement they finally settled with. And, at the end of the day, there are no winners in this. There's nobody won with this verdict. All that we have are losers and survivors. So,
Yeah.
I think, like Karen said, it had nothing to do with him. It had to do with the future of her family. So I feel like he should be very grateful for that, because Karen has a lot of power. She's developed a big name in the last almost 7 years, and I fully believe those jurors would have came back with a death sentence.
Now, speaking of Karen Bobo, the mom, her testimony was so compelling. I thought that it was one of the strongest moments in the trial. How is she doing both physically and emotionally now? And the father as well.
Well, I can tell you, whenever they was leaving court after the verdict was announced, they got in their vehicle, they was escorted out, and I was probably 50 feet away from their vehicle as it was leaving, and I could just hear the loudest, happiest screams, just cheering. And Karen even mentioned that she saw Dana smile for the first time.
Nice.
So they're doing good.
Good.
I mean, it's not going to bring Polly back, but they've got a little bit of answers. They've got a little bit of closure, and there's still a long process in this justice system. We've got 2 more that we have to go through. So, this is just number 1, and they're very pleased.
We had Nellie, the same viewer, had another question for you that I think is interesting, Rickey. She asked about, all the allegations about the drug use in this trial. Have you found that law enforcement has been cracking down more severely on this type of drug use in that area, or do you think that continues to be a problem?
I think drug use, to the momentum that we have heard about in this trial, it's a huge problem, especially in these small rural towns. And I from the bottom of my heart, I pray they are cracking down, because whether you agree with it or not, we learned through the trial that a lot of the law enforcement agencies, the TBI, they really dropped the gun on this case, and I really hope there's some sort of reform. I really pray that they look at this, and I mean the world is watching, and I pray that they take notice and say there is absolutely a problem, and there's something that's got to be done about it. Not only in Polly's name, but in the name of so many other victims around here that, don't get the attention that Polly does.
Right.
Right here in Parsons, we have another lady who has been missing for almost 2 decades, and she hasn't received, any. Her case has basically just been left as a sheet in the wind, and there's been nothing done, and her case is directly, more than likely, related to the drug scene here in the county, and I really pray that there's something that can be done.
Well, it would be nice if something positive could come out of all of this for the community and for the Bobos, and if that's something that can come out of it, then certainly that's something that we can all hope for. Rickey, thank you so much for being with us here this morning at Law News. We really appreciate it, and please send our sympathies and our best wishes to the Bobo family.
I sure will. Thank you guys so much.